Hello, Jessalyn here.
And Pam. Welcome to the community where we explore how Jesus is our light.
And we are here to spur each other on to love God and others right where we live. We are called to shine.
Not only do stars shine brightest when they are closest, but stars shine brightest when it's darkest. Have you experienced one of those nights where it is truly dark? There are no city lights, no moon, and all you see is darkness? But you look up, and shining bright is one star that sparkles and gives light. It shines brighter, surrounded by the darkest night. An African proverb says it well: the darker the night, the brighter the star.
When we are in hard seasons, it can feel like darkness all around. Even making the next step can be a challenge when you can't see ahead of you. We all experience hard seasons, from sickness physically and mentally to taking care of someone who's going through sickness. Watching your own child struggle can be harder than if it was happening to you. From grieving loss of a job, of a dream, a friendship, or even the loss of life here on earth. As we head into the holidays, we might experience challenges and triggers of what has changed and who is missing this holiday season. And we might encounter the question, do I even want to celebrate or participate?
Jesus encouraged us saying, I have come to give you peace. In this world, you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. He didn't say, you're going to have trouble, so get on over it, move past it. He said, take heart, which means to have courage. How do we take heart, and how do we help others take heart in dark times? As we lean into seasons of darkness, we realize that many of you are in your own dark season right now. We hope we can encourage you to know you are not alone and that God can use something in this podcast to speak directly to you, saying, I see you and I care.
I am so glad you said that, Pam. There have been seasons where seeing the needs of others was challenging for me because I personally was battling my own depression and darkness. And in those seasons, I felt like I was drowning. I was desperate for someone to throw me a life preserver as I was discouraged and overwhelmed myself.
Jessalyn, I look forward to hearing what life preservers were thrown to you and what that looked like. Sometimes we need the life preserver, and sometimes we get to throw the life preserver to others, which might look like a shining star where you shine your light of hope to those in darkness.
Brené Brown, known for her research and wisdom on empathy, says, empathy is connecting with people so we know we're not alone when we're in struggle. Empathy is a way to connect to the emotion another person is experiencing. It doesn't require that we have the same situation they are going through. Empathy has no script. There is no right way or wrong way to do it. It's simply listening, holding space, withholding judgment, emotionally connecting, and communicating that incredibly healing message of, you're not alone.
As we journey in dark seasons, there is a time to just focus on keeping the oxygen mask on our own face, hanging on to the life preserver, and surviving. And sometimes God encourages us as we help others take courage and give the gift of our presence by just showing up. There have been times when God has called me to shine the little light I had for someone else. I didn't give advice or share knowledge. I might have even actually admitted I didn't know what to say or do, which generated connection and brought us closer together. It is amazing how much joy and peace I've experienced when I had a reprieve from my circumstances and entered someone else's challenges. Today, we have a guest that is going to bring you joy as you step into her circumstances and hear her heart. Caroline Schuler is a light in my life. She is a member of the Neighbor Bible Studies to Go team with Cru City. Caroline entered this world 28 years ago, the same year that my son was born. And she has been my encourager, my kindred spirit, as I've struggled with health issues. Caroline and I first bonded in a car right through the North Georgia and North Carolina mountains. She makes me laugh. She's excelled in giving me courage through her listening, connecting, and reminding me I am not alone. And the amazing thing is she has done it while struggling in her own health journey as well. The month before she was born, doctors explained to her parents that she had a 25% chance of surviving delivery. She wouldn't be born breathing and likely had a heart defect. Caroline was born with respiratory issues and smaller in stature than expected. She was a little person. Her first 2 months she spent on life support as she was born on February 10th, 2:10. Her family claimed Ephesians 2:10 for her life. For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works. They knew God created Caroline for a purpose, and they believed He would sustain her, and He has. Caroline, thank you for joining us on Called to Shine.
Thank you, Pam and Jesselyn. It's a joy to be with you.
So glad you're here. I wish our listeners could see your face right now and your wonderful, striking red hair. Caroline, it's been a joy to get to know you, and I would love for you to tell us a little bit about your health journey in life.
Yeah, so as Pam said, being born a little person, I stand just at 3.5 feet tall, and so that's presented different challenges, of course, through different seasons of life, mostly in terms of different bone and joint difficulties that have required countless hours of physical therapy over the years, numerous surgeries to correct different things. Yeah, it's been a journey of just trusting God with the handiwork He made, even though I've not always understood it. Maybe not always desired the ways it's materialized, but trusting Him, and most recently, a different level of that, seeing Him at work providing through great medical care.
Wow, Caroline, it sounds like you had to trust God immensely. So where have you seen God show up?
I've seen God show up. One way in particular is just through the people He's provided in my life. I come from such godly parents who have just been heroes in my story, caring for me and helping navigate a medical system that's often tricky, not to mention the people in my life who have discipled me and just been present in a number of different ways. I think of God's people and His Word that have kept me going.
I love that. His people and His Word. He showed up to be with you. Caroline, help us dive a little deeper into the last 2 years, what that journey has looked like, what you've experienced. Was there a time that was actually dark during that season?
So last May, I was set to have cervical spine fusion, 10 level. I was told recovery would likely look like being in a brace for probably 4 months, then with rigorous physical therapy after that to fully recover.
Level 10, is that what you said?
It means they were fusing 10 vertebrae together.
Okay, so that was in May.
Yeah, they knew it would be a long recovery because the fusion starts all the way actually up at my head, so now my head is locked in and then goes down to the middle of my back. They knew it would be several months in a brace, but about 7 weeks into the recovery, when we noticed that the incision was not healing well, we had to go in for emergency surgery to make sure that there was not a really serious infection or that the hardware did not get infected either. And upon going in for that surgery, they were unable to intubate me because of the fusion, the limitations that caused, and we had to do an emergency tracheostomy. Trachs are something I was very unfamiliar with, but quickly became acquainted with when I woke up with a trach after that surgery. So trachs require a lot of daily maintenance in terms of breathing treatments. Plus, they just occupy your airway, so it makes breathing really tricky. We began a regimen of caring for the trach, but also I then jumped into 49 hyperbaric chamber treatments as well, which was new to me. It became so mentally hard to continue to go back day after day because it took about 4 hours of every day. I felt like that was just life. There wasn't time to do things I enjoyed doing. It was just the routine day after day and the resetting of expectations. When they said originally we'll be doing 20 and then we'll be doing 40, and then it just kept on increasing in time.
Was there a period of time that it felt the darkest?
Absolutely. Before all of the hyperbaric routine started, there were 8 days in the hospital where I was totally had no voice. I was completely mute. Because of the trach they put in, it was the wrong size. They could give me no guarantee that my voice would come back. So that was definitely a dark season. I can look back now and see it was only 8 days, but man, in that time it felt like each day was about a month. It was definitely a dark period.
Caroline, how do you deal with darkness? Were there tears? Were you just quiet and it was just introspection? What were you feeling and how were you dealing with that?
Yes, there were a lot of tears in those 8 days. I mean, I have to admit, I felt so bad at the time that it was hard to fully have some big introspective moment of what life's going to look like if things don't change, because it was really just an hour by hour. I got to do the next treatment, the next nurse is coming in, and so forth. It was a huge step of surrender to think my life has been in the hands of medical professionals, nothing's guaranteed, and the outcome of the rest of my life could be extremely different than what I've known. So there was tears, there was the reading of God's Word. I listened to so much music to reset my mind on Him. Even though I couldn't speak, everything was through text on my phone to communicate to my parents, and doctors couldn't have done it without people there.
Caroline, I like that you said people. People are key to helping us experiencing God in the darkness and to keep having hope. Pam and I were talking about this before, but our friends and different people in our life, it can be really great to have them around and get their input. But I personally know sometimes when I've tried to help a friend in their darkness or struggling physically like you, or they've had a loss, that I try to fix the sadness. I get a little uncomfortable when there's a lot of sorrow and sadness, and I'm like, oh, I want people to cheer up and have joy. But I've had a handful of friends tell me, Jessalyn, can you not try to fix this? Don't give me the silver lining like you like to do in everything in life. I just want you to listen and be there. So, Caroline, how have people shown you mercy and love that truly resonated with you?
What first comes to mind, my medical journey in the last 16, 18 months, supposed to be a certain duration. People were set up to be in touch and be helpful for that time. And then it went on way past anything that people were committed to helping with. When I think about what was most helpful and just most tender for me was when people stayed present no matter how long the journey went. Life moved on for them. I know it did, but it wasn't moving on for me quite yet. And so when they stayed in touch to say, I know this hasn't changed for you, we're not going anywhere.
Did that look like a text, a letter, or a phone call, or was it dropping by and just being beside you side by side?
Oftentimes it was a text message for people that were either close by or not so local, but also it meant us so much when friends even set up a little routine or a schedule of coming by once a week. I had a friend that she and I would read the Word together once a week before everything began, and she kept that up. She said, I still want to come over. So she would come, bring her Bible, and we'd sit there and read. Another coworker would say, I want to come over and work with you at the house. This was further along when I was able to spend some time in front of the computer. She would come over once a week and just work with me. For that presence to be there no matter how long it went. And I think about people who didn't wait for an ask. They either sent a meal, brought something over they thought I might enjoy. They didn't say, how can we help? And then wait for a response. They just took the step.
I think food is the language of love.
It is.
It says so much when people show up with a little treat to say, I thought of you. Caroline, there's probably so many people that just showed up and loved on you. Now, I know everybody's heart has been, they care and they want to lean in, help carry you through the unknown and the hard times. But even in the midst of that, there were some things that were probably done or said that were not helpful. Help us learn from your circumstances. Would you be willing to share with us a few things that didn't feel helpful at the time?
Yeah, I know people, of course, mean well. One thing that would continually be said over and over, oh, you look great. You look like you're doing so good. I thought, oh, you have no idea how much of a fight it is to look halfway decent. And then that would kind of be the comment and they would move on. I knew they had no clue of how hard it was. One friend who had been through a similar dark season, but hers was the loss of a spouse, she even said to me, she said, you're looking great, but I just want you to know I know there's a lot going on behind the scenes. And that was like, oh, she recognizes that it's hard. To say, yeah, it's nice to know you don't look like you're keeling over, but to know that there's a lot going on to get to where you are, and that recognition is so valuable, was to my heart.
There's something about being seen and understood, even if they can't feel every feeling that you went through, to recognize the challenges. Jessalyn, you mentioned at the beginning, have been seasons where you felt like you were drowning. During that, what was encouraging to you? How did people show up that you felt seen?
Just hearing and learning that many people have struggled with depression. I thought something was wrong with me. I have a relationship with God. I'm not supposed to struggle. And that's not true. Thought I was not alone. I needed to hear that. It made me feel not so crazy. I found myself relating to people in the Bible like Elijah for the first time. In 1 Kings 19, Elijah is weary from life and ministry and went into hiding in the wilderness and basically told God, I'm all done. I felt like Elijah. He became my best friend for those months. And for me, practically, I found a trusted counselor and I had a couple good friends that I confided in and asked them to check in on me each week and pray for me. Also, I remember when I had my second baby boy, he came 21 days early. It was a shock to me. I know I shouldn't be so shocked the baby's coming, but it was. I did not know where the car seat was for this child. I was overwhelmed, in despair. I had no diapers for this kid. I had no family close by. And I remember when I was in the hospital from an emergency C-section trying to recover and try to grasp what just happened in the past 24 hours. My friends came in the hospital room, grabbed my house keys, and my dear friends cleaned my entire house, stocking it with diapers and several meals in my fridge. They rescued me like nobody's business.
We all need friends like that. How encouraging. Showing up, doing some cleaning, getting some food, be it you cook it or be it you go buy it. Those are all gifts we probably have capacity for at different times. Jessalyn, in the midst of that, were there some things you had to take away of just acknowledging were not helpful?
Similar to Caroline, people would tell me if I told them I was struggling, they're like, it's not that bad. Things aren't that bad. You're going to be okay. Just cheer up. Kind of a lack of empathy and truly taking me for my word when I said, I'm not myself. I don't think I'm doing well. That for some reason really frustrated me because I was trying to reach out for help and I think people kind of minimized it, probably because it's just an awkward situation to get into when someone's saying, I'm really struggling with downward thoughts. I think we all kind of panic. I think I wish somebody would have been like, tell me more about that, like what's going on. Maybe take a deeper dive. So Pam, you've heard from us. What about you?
Jessalyn, when I went through my own depression, I had a friend that was so caring and wanted to help. She figured out the answer. She told me, Pam, I've got it. When you feel that way, don't.
Are you serious?
Bottom line, it wasn't helpful. I knew her heart. She actually could do that in her own life when she starts to feel something, to grab that thought captive, to send it away. But it was actually a clinical depression. But I loved her heart. I loved that she cared. I loved that she was willing to get involved with me. As I have gone through my own dark seasons, I have seen people show up with the gift of their presence. When someone shows up and gives time by just being by my side, it has encouraged me. One day, a friend called and said her daughter's engagement had just been called off, and she said that her daughter was asking for one thing. She wanted to spend time with Miss Pam. She wanted me to remind her of what was true and what was lies from the enemy. But mostly, she just wanted my presence. As she spilled tears and tried to process what was going on, she wanted me to say, I'm here and I love you. During one of the rough seasons through parenting, one of my children gave me the chance to be on my knees much, bonding with God. And I found myself in the living room floor, pouring out my heart, pouring out my tears. And the next thing I know, there had been a gift on my front porch. That a friend that knew I wasn't ready to talk, but she wanted me to know that she was thinking of me. And she left a gift, and it was simply a mug, and it spoke volumes. It said, I see you and I care, and every day that I got my coffee, and I would use that mug, it said, she's thinking about me, she's praying for me, and I'm not in this alone. I've learned that I can reach out to friends, even when I'm going through a hard season, by giving them a mug, give a plant or a candle, a book or a journal, food, and if you don't have time to cook, gift cards can speak wonders. Others have given me the gift of words. Many times it's been in a text to say, I love you. But sometimes it's been in those really special handwritten notes where people have taken the time to find that stamp, to sit down and write out a verse of encouragement, a few thoughts of how they're thinking about me and praying for me. But mostly they just said, I care. It's hard when people don't know what to say. But I will say that when I had my first 2 miscarriages before I had any other children, it was tough as people gave advice, would share all kinds of stories with me to give me hope that if maybe I went through 6 more miscarriages, then I would have 3 lovely children, or advice on how to get pregnant. And I became a little punchy with some of the advice that people gave. But I soon realized the hardest was when people said nothing at all, as if it never happened. I learned that I would rather someone say the wrong thing with the right heart over saying nothing at all. Caroline, our stories are from the past, but yours is happening now. Share with us what happened next on your journey.
I guess it was about 6 or 7 months later. Everything with the hyperbaric had worked enough, at least, to where they said we can safely pull the trach out. We won't have to operate again. I remember October, I was so excited. I thought, finally, all the treatments were coming to an end. It was another dark day because they took the trach out and I could not breathe without it, and it went right back in. And so that just began another kind of extension of everything, exploring medically and fervent prayer of God, have mercy and bring this to some kind of healing. You don't guarantee it, but we're going to pray that it'll come. Through the provision of another local doctor here who operated on my airways several more times, The trach finally was able to be removed successfully just in July.
Wow, that is so exciting. Thank you, Lord. Did the original surgery, the fusion of the 10 vertebrae, have success? How has it affected your life? Are there any ways that we can pray for you?
The actual fusion had to happen, just fancy term is stenosis, but my spinal cord was being really compressed. The pain is greatly reduced. I'm very, very thankful for that. And I will say, though, that the hard part in continuing forward, and that will be just a new reality for me, is not being able to turn my head because the fusion goes all the way up. And I have to say, it's been a really hard adjustment, especially as my activities then picked back up. I went, okay, this is really hard when you can't rotate or turn your head. Think about driving. I got my permit. I know the day I turned 15, I was like, I am getting on the road. I'm driving. So I've been driving, but the car was adapted with pedals and a seat to get me up and everything. But after this recent change, I've added mirrors now that show me like 90 degrees to the left, 90 degrees to the right, since I can't turn and look those ways. But I'm so thankful for the independence. Adapting to things are not new to me, but this is definitely a new version of that. Trying to walk through life being so short, and yet I can't look up, it's tricky. I've had to fight the fear. My airway will never be the same. There will be changes if I ever have to have surgery again. It's a kind of a fight of not letting my mind go down that road too far, but also being able to accept what I need to be aware of. So just prayer that God will guard my heart, but also keep me from some of those hardest realities should they ever have to come again. That God would give me the grace to walk through the new normal He's placed in my life.
Now, in July, you were able to take a trip to Texas. I know you love traveling. Can you share with us what some of your dreams are for the future?
Yeah, Pam, I do love to travel. That's something that really gives me life. I do look forward, and I have to say, as soon as the trach was out and I knew the machines would also be left behind soon after, I was so eager to put some trip down for ministry specifically. I just love traveling, seeing people come to Christ, and seeing God at work in different cultures that are not so familiar to myself. I do dream of how God might continue to incorporate that into my life going forward.
I love your independence, and I love God's creativity to give you a mom that's the most nurturing and a dad that's the biggest researcher and fixer to make Miss Caroline get to have her independence in all the different ways, but to adapt. Pray that she gets to travel, go be a light to the world as God allows her through physical challenges. And then the other thing I'm praying for you, the desire of your heart, if God calls, that He will bring you the man of your dreams that gets to walk beside you in life. Audience, feel free to pray with me as well.
Yes.
So as we see others struggling around us, how would you encourage us to show up for people, to give them the gift of being present?
I think I would sit with them in the pain. I know just the other night I pulled out a card was the most significant to me because I may have either never met this friend or met her once. But her words were, I grieve with you in this season for these reasons. So to acknowledge and recognize how hard it is.
Caroline, that's such great advice. What other things have we not talked about today that you're thinking, oh, I would love for our listeners to know or hear or understand this?
If you're willing to go to the person who is in a hard season and to say that, if you want to process with me, just know that I'd love to listen. For someone to say that to me, it just means the world. I had a friend ask me recently, how are you processing everything? And I thought, oh, she doesn't forget either, that it's not all that long in the past.
Thank you, Caroline. What a treasure hearing your heart, sharing with us your story that we can learn from. Thank you for being here. The light of Christ in us shines brightest when life is darkest for others. Our presence shows Jesus' compassion like nothing else. Sometimes it seems easier to avoid those in pain, but our commitment to reach out shows genuine love, and it can bring incredible hope. And He gives all of us the opportunity to help bring His light to others through their darkness.
And for those of you struggling to see ahead in the darkness right now, we are so sorry. You are not alone. Many in the world today and many in the Bible can relate. God sees you, He will never leave you, and He cares for you. I remember when I was struggling to believe that I would ever feel better and experience joy again, I would read scripture, and I honestly just felt numb. It's like a head-to-heart disconnect. So I began to pray a verse in Mark 9:24 saying, Lord, I do believe, help my unbelief. And over time, He restored my belief. Lastly, Psalm 34:18 brings a lot of comfort. It says, the Lord is near to the brokenhearted. He saves those crushed in spirit. That verse brings me comfort in two ways. One, He will meet me in my sadness. And two, He will meet others as well in their trials and disappointments. It's not all up to me. He's got them. God gives all of us the opportunity to help bring His light to others in darkness.
Robert Louis Stevenson, the author and wordsmith, grew up in Scotland. In those days, streetlights didn't just come on automatically. People were hired to light each one individually. One evening, as the lamp lighters did their work, climbing their ladders, lifting the glass lid, lighting the torch, shutting the lid, climbing down, and moving on to the next lamp, young Stevenson was enthralled. As dusk settled into night, one light would be kindled, then another and another. He turned to his parents and said, "Look, they're punching holes in the darkness." Friends, let's step out together, showing mercy and love to those going through dark times, and trust God to punch holes in the darkness with the light inside of us.
We have so much more to explore together, so be sure to subscribe to our podcast. And if today has inspired or encouraged you, you can help others find us by taking a moment to give us a review on your favorite podcast streaming site.
And as our thanks for joining us here, we invite you to follow us on Instagram at Called to Shine. As part of our Called to Shine Instagram community, you will get encouragement and ideas to help you connect to the people around you.
And as always, you can find resources to help you shine the light of Jesus at nbstogo.com, Neighbor Bible Studies to Go. In our next episode, stars shine brightest in a cluster. Who can you shine beside using your gifts while they use theirs and you shine bright together?
Thanks for joining us today. We are Called to Shine.